are some stories that should never be told, but those stories should be embraced. There is something dark and scary about these dark tales. Sometimes dreams and nightmares come true.
I see you.
There's nowhere to hide.
Whiskers. In Nashville, Tennessee, in a suburb town, a little girl wakes up to a dark gray cat outside her bedroom window. The cat has orange eyes and dark fur. It meows and makes other sounds as if it wants her to let it in. The girl gets out of bed and walks over to the window, seeing the cat. The orange eyes glisten in the moonlight and at some angles turn colors. The girl smiles and places one hand up to the glass. The cat walks in a circle, then meows. It then looks at the girl. It makes a soft purring noise. Then it places a paw on the window opposite of her hand. The girl smiles and the cat meows. Glenda is an 8-year-old girl who doesn't have any pets. Her mother works 2 jobs, and whenever she asked her mom if they could get an animal, she said, "No, Glenda, we can't afford it. Taking care of an animal is too much work." She then explained the money she would have to spend on vet bills, getting the animal shots, having to take it outside to potty or pay someone to train it to follow commands, the cost of food. For Glenda, it was always an excuse her mother came up with, and the more she talked, it made it hard for Glenda to win her mom over on the idea it would be a good thing. So, staring at the window at the dark gray cat made her sad. She saw it as a friend she wanted to pet, take care of, hug, cuddle with, love. Glenda looked at her bedroom door, then back at the window. She stared into the cat's eyes with wonder. She wondered if she could hide it, if she could make the cat hers and keep it a secret, so she couldn't help herself. She opened the window. The cat leaped inside and sniffed the air. It meowed a few times and walked around the room. It looked as if it was taking in the view of Glenda's bedroom. Glenda sat on the floor watching the cat. "Hey kitty, come here," Glenda says with a soft, whispery voice. The cat stopped walking away, then looked back at her, its orange eyes staring into her brown eyes. The cat then walked to her purring. It rubbed its head into her knee as she sat with her back to her bed. The girl pets the cat, then rubbed her hands on its fur coat. The cat liked it. It purred more and more, then it laid next to her. Tears left Glenda's eyes as she rubbed the cat's back. She never felt this way for an animal. A connection, a friendship, a love for a creature that seemed strong and binding. "Can I call you Whiskers?" Glenda asked under her breath. The cat rubbed the top of its head into her hand, into her fingers, rubbing the inside of her palm gently and calmly. The fur brushed into her hand, making her feel its infection, its reaction to what she asked. To her, she felt the cat responded with yes. Glenda picked up Whiskers and placed the cat in her bed. She then closed her bedroom window and got in bed. The cat curled up next to her pillow where she lay her head. "Whiskers, I have to get some sleep now. I'm very tired. In the morning, I will have to open the window so you can leave. I can't let my mommy know you are in the house, but come back tonight and I'll bring you something to eat and drink. I promise," Glenda said with her tired voice. Her sleepy stare in the cat's orange eyes lasted for a long while. The cat then looked away and laid resting its head next to her face. Glenda placed one hand on the cat, then fell asleep. In the morning, Glenda woke to find Whiskers gone, her bedroom window open, her mother picking up clothes from off the floor and closet. Glenda's mother was doing laundry and must have come in and opened the window. Maybe Whiskers hid and escaped when she wasn't looking. The sound of birds chirping and wind blowing into the trees outside the window came to Glenda. Glenda got out of bed and her mother told her good morning. Glenda's mother kissed the top of her head and told her to brush her teeth and get ready for school. Glenda told her mother okay and gave her a hug. After her mother left the room, Glenda looked under her bed, then in her closet. She looked behind her dresser too. No sign of Whiskers. Glenda then peeked out the window. All she could see is a bushy tree filled with leaves and long branches close to the house. She looked down at the ground and street below, then at a few houses out of sight of the tree blocking most of the view. She then heard the sound of a meow, then a hiss and a sound of wrestling in the tree. Some branches shook and some leaves fell. Whiskers steps out of a leafy section of the tree with a bird's head hanging out of its mouth. It then lumped it up with a loud crunching sound. Glenda was shocked. When Whiskers finished, the cat licked its tongue out, then licked its paws. Glenda stared horrified, the image of the bird still moving, embedded in her thoughts like a never-ending nightmare. She didn't think she would ever witness something like that. Whiskers purred and looked over at Glenda. The cat seemed to take notice to Glenda's reaction. It meowed a low cry sound, as if it was apologizing to Glenda. The cat's head knelt with a shyness and sorry expression. It meowed again. It sounded like a low whimper. Glenda seemed to connect to Whiskers. She felt that the cat knew she felt bad about what she saw it do. "Whiskers, you can't do that. I'll bring you food, okay?" Glenda says to Whiskers. Whiskers makes a sound. It sounded as if the cat spoke. The meow sound was high-pitched, and it sounded like it formed the word, okay. This made Glenda feel surprised. She told Whiskers to come to her, and the cat did. She pets the cat and rubs under the cat's neck. Whiskers purrs and meows. Glenda hugs the cat, placing her face on the cat's head. The cat meows and purrs again. Glenda, for the next couple of nights, hung out with Whiskers. She brought food like she said she would, a cup of milk, some crackers, some cat food, bought with her allowance. She noticed something about Whiskers. The cat never stank. It was always clean, the fur always soft, the claws not too long or too sharp. The smell of Whiskers smelt like a scent of lemons and brown sugar. It was weird. Did this cat belong to someone? Glenda thought. But it has no collar, and why would the owner keep letting it out to run free? It might get struck by a car or attacked by a dog. Glenda watched cartoons in the living room with Whiskers after she heard her mother sneak out to go on a date. Her mother must have thought Glenda went to sleep on Saturday at 8 p.m. So, she made the decision to see a man. Glenda spent more time with Whiskers for the next 2 weekends. Her mother, falling for Glenda going to bed early, gave her the idea to leave the home and search for a boyfriend every Saturday night. Seeing that her daughter was asleep made her feel she would be safe and didn't have to worry. Glenda ran down the stairs with Whiskers chasing her. She tried to see if she could hide from Whiskers, and she couldn't. Whiskers is too fast and too smart of a cat. She then acted like a cat. She purred and meowed and crawled on the floor. Whiskers looked at her confused a couple of times and decided to play with her. The cat slapped its paws at Glenda, and Glenda laughed. When Glenda heard her mother pull into the driveway, she turned the TV off and all the lights she had on. She called for Whiskers to follow her, and Whiskers did. Glenda shut her bedroom door and opened the window. "Whiskers, you have to go outside for a bit. My mom always checks in on me when she comes home," Glenda tells Whiskers. Whiskers, like always, seemed to understand Glenda. The cat leaps to the window edge, then looks back at Glenda one last time, then leaps into the tree across from the window. Glenda hopped into bed. She pulled her covers over her shoulders and pretended to be asleep. Her bedroom door opens 5 minutes later. She can hear her mother whispering, telling someone, "That's my daughter." A man's voice is heard speaking back, "Aw, so sweet." Her bedroom door closes and Glenda starts to cry. She couldn't believe her mother. She said she would never replace her father. Glenda's father passed away when she was 6. He died of a heart attack. They found him sitting outside in his car dead. He had come home from work and never exited the vehicle. He was a good father. He always made sure she was safe. He always gave Glenda affection. He was silly and joked around a lot. He was playful and was a one-of-a-kind man. When he passed, it was hard for Glenda and her mom, Cheryl. Her mother had to pick up another job. The loss caused a separation between mother and daughter. It made them not as close as they used to be, like a piece to a puzzle gone and never to be seen, something that neither one of them can find again, but they try. Glenda lays in bed tossing and turning. She can't sleep. She gets up hoping Whiskers were at the window. She looked, and Whiskers was not there. Alone, she thought. She went downstairs and heard music coming from her mother's bedroom. The door vibrated with the sounds of rock music. It was so loud it drowned out any noises her mother and new friend would be making behind the closed door. Glenda went to the door with tears in her eyes. She then placed one ear to the door. She heard the man inside making disturbing sounds and heard her mother's moans. Glenda stepped away from the door and went to the kitchen to pour a cup of fruit punch juice. She sat down at the dining room table. She sat thinking of her dad. She cried, feeling bad. She began to feel angry about her mother moving on. How dare she lie to me, Glenda thought. The bedroom door opens. A man walks around the corner, going into the kitchen. He is in his boxers, and he is shirtless. He has tattoos, a fit body. He stopped in his tracks and was surprised to see Glenda. "Hey, little girl. Sorry, you startled me. I'm your mother's friend," the man says, looking at Glenda rubbing back his sweaty, damp hair. "I'm Brandon, and you are Glenda. What a nice name." Glenda wipes the tears from her eyes, then gives the man a slight smile. She then drinks some juice from her cup. "Just passing by getting some water. Your mom said she has some water bottles in the fridge, so just getting one," Brandon says, walking on past Glenda. Glenda nods her head. Brandon opens the fridge, then peeks over at Glenda, seeing if she was staring at him. She wasn't. She faced away, looking sad. Brandon finds bottled water, then steps out of the kitchen. He turns to face Glenda. "Hey, I really like your mom, and we are good together. I hope me and you can be friends. I like to know you. You have a good night. Gotta get back to your mom. She might start wondering if I'm snooping around," Brandon says with a big smile. Just as he turned away, he sneezed. The sneeze was loud and made him shake his head. "What? Y'all got cats up in here?" Brandon says, going back into Cheryl's bedroom. In the kitchen window, Whiskers sits on a ledge, staring and watching Glenda. The cat meows. The next few days, Glenda and her mother became toxic towards one another. Brandon moved in, and it made it hard for Glenda to let Whiskers come in, because whenever she did, Brandon would start sneezing and coughing. Glenda thought Brandon was a bit weird around her. Just the looks he gave her creeped her out. One evening, Brandon showed Glenda a small blue ring her mother gave him. It is shiny. "This is a promise ring. It's a connection me and your mother have. It's a bit childish for us to wear them, but it makes us feel connected and more like nothing can stop us. I bought your mom a pink one," Brandon says, kneeling down to meet Glenda's height. "Maybe one of these days, I'll get you one. It would just be between the two of us," Brandon says, petting the right shoulder of Glenda. He then rubs his hand across her cheek, then pets the top of her head. He then leaves her with a chuckle. Soon her mother found cat hair in the living room when she was cleaning. She asked Glenda about it, and Glenda lied. When Cheryl found cat food in the closet hidden behind toys, she decided to place a camera in her daughter's bedroom. She pointed it towards the window and told her daughter not to move it or she would get a spanking. Glenda begged her mother to not do it, and her mother yelled at her. Glenda lay in her bed crying after her mother left. 10 minutes later, Brandon walked in and sat next to Glenda. "Hey, you don't need to be sad, I'm here now. I'll take care of you and your mother," Brandon says quietly. He then strokes Glenda's hair. Glenda flinches a bit, not expecting that. "Don't worry, you sweet little thing. I'll make sure you're happy. I'll even take you out for dinner. Just you and me. Any place you want to go to, you just let me know," Brandon says with a lustful look in his eyes. Brandon's hand leaves her hair, and he pets her hand gently. Just as he does, he looks up to see Whiskers in the window. The cat hisses at him, then leaps in, jumping onto the bed. Glenda sits up quickly, shocked and scared. Now her mother had her. Whiskers captured on her mother's camera. Brandon sneezed and backed away. Whiskers hissed and made an angry sound. The cat walked up to Brandon with its angry orange eyes. Glenda told Whiskers to stop, but the cat seemed to know something she didn't. Brandon walked backwards, backing out of the room with his hands up, telling the cat to chill out. He kept sneezing. Cheryl walked into the room, passing Brandon and seeing the cat. Cheryl yelled at the cat and the cat hissed at her. Cheryl said, "Get out my house," and went to the window and yanked it all the way open. The cat wouldn't leave Glenda's side. The more it stayed in the house, the more louder and angry her mother became. Glenda picked up Whiskers and ran away from her mother. She ran downstairs and opened the front door. She put down Whiskers and told Whiskers to go. Whiskers looked at her with a sad-sounding meow. Glenda shouted tearfully at the gray cat to go. Whiskers made a sad whimpering sound, then took off. Cheryl came running out of the house with a broom in hand. When Cheryl saw Whiskers running away, she was glad. She then grabbed Glenda by the arm and pulled her into the house. Glenda screamed and cried as soon as the front door closed. Her mother spanked her, disciplining her for lying and keeping secrets. Glenda's window was nailed shut so she could never open it again. For the next couple of weeks, she didn't see Whiskers, even when she stared out the window and hoped she would, hoping the gray-orange eye feline would make an appearance standing in the tree. She didn't care if she saw it eat a bird again. She just wanted to see Whiskers. A few times, Brandon would show up to Glenda's bedroom to sit with her and talk. He would ask personal questions and seemed to want to dig in more on what she thought of him. She would always say he's nice and he makes her mom happy. When she dodged his cringy questions about him sharing a bed with her for a night or going to a movie with just him and her, it made him upset. He would punch the bed or hit the wall, but then laugh and say he's just fooling around. One day, Cheryl had to work mandatory overtime, and she asked Brandon to look after Glenda, so he did. Brandon invited some friends over, and they drank and played card games. Brandon went to Glenda's bedroom a few times to check in on her, and he would find her playing with toys or coloring, sometimes on her iPad computer watching YouTube videos. As the night went on, Brandon saw his friends off and knew Cheryl would be home in the next hour. Brandon stood in the hallway outside Glenda's bedroom, pacing back and forth. He was trembling, his eyes with worry. He scratched his chest and seemed to be fighting with a decision. He turned, looking at a clock on a wall. He felt the pressure push inside. Brandon opened the bedroom door to Glenda's room. He stepped in, seeing the lights off and Glenda asleep in bed, his heart starting to race in his chest. His palms becoming sweaty. He slowly got closer, but then his throat got scratchy. He didn't want to make a sound until he sat on the bed next to Glenda, but the feeling of tiny itchiness got worse. He grunted and began to sneeze. His eyes watered and he backed away from the girl. She moved a bit, but was still sleeping. Brandon coughed and rubbed his neck. He seemed to be getting worse. The tears just wouldn't stop coming out of his eyes. He made grunting sounds, trying to clear his throat. He then looked around, thinking maybe she let the cat back in but didn't see it. He then knelt down on the floor to look under the bed. He grabbed the bed covers that hung down, blocking the view from under the bed. Brandon, a bit scared, hesitated to lift the bedclothes. With one hand, he then lifted the bedsheet. Under the bed, 2 orange eyes stared back at him. Whiskers lunged at Brandon, scratching his face. The cat went wild, and it ran around his body, digging its claws into his skin. Brandon backed out of the room, yelling and crying. The cat never fell to the floor, as it kept clawing and jumping to one part of Brandon's torso to the other. Brandon finally grabbed Whiskers and held him away. The cat swung fast and made a brutal attack with hind legs and front, the paws with sharp, dark-curved claws scratching at Brandon. Brandon tossed the cat over the rail of the second floor. The cat fell, landing on its feet. The fall and the landing looked like it didn't even faze it. Brandon looked down, seeing the cat hissing and growling with a scary sound. The front door opens and Cheryl walks in holding her purse and keys. The cat looks at her, then back at Brandon, then it hisses. Glenda came running out of her bedroom. She looked down, seeing Whiskers. She didn't know how Whiskers got in or what was happening, but when she saw how Brandon looked, it sunk in. Somehow Whiskers got in and attacked Brandon for no reason. "It was in her room! It attacked me!" Brandon yelled. Cheryl grabbed her purse, ready to hit the cat. Whiskers ran past her, dodging the purse swing. That night, Glenda got another spanking and was sent to bed. Cheryl took Brandon to the emergency room. A few days went by, and Brandon still has scars from being scratched in the face. This made it hard for him at work. Him being a mechanic, and every customer that comes in to see him, he had to explain what happened to him because seeing the curiosity in their eyes drove him crazy. Brandon started to park a few ways from Cheryl's house and watch. Looking for Whiskers to show up, he hated that cat so badly, it messed up the night he thought he would have enjoyed. Brandon would see Glenda walking home from school with a few of her friends tagging along. When her friends left, he would see her walking around the yard, looking around, almost like she was looking for Whiskers. It's been weeks since Glenda seen Whiskers. Since the day Whiskers attacked Brandon, Glenda figured Whiskers knew about the spanking she got after Whiskers escaped and maybe felt bad and didn't want her to suffer from it again, so probably that's why Whiskers is staying away. It was just a thought. It felt real, like she could sense what Whiskers thought. Glenda thought if Whiskers could really connect to her that way, she would close her eyes and ask Whiskers to show up again. After school one hot sunny day, Glenda told a few friends about Whiskers and what the cat did to Brandon. All her friends laughed and said it was cool. Some of the boys told Glenda the cat probably was protecting her since something bad was going to happen. Another said maybe Brandon did something to cause the cat to attack him, like pull its tail or kick it. Glenda said she just didn't know how it got in the house. It was like Whiskers appeared out of nowhere. A boy with red hair told Glenda that cats have 9 lives, and maybe Whiskers is a ghost cat. Its 9 lives was up, and it just haunts the neighborhood collecting souls. The gang of kids laughed, and the red hair boy just made a serious look as though he wasn't playing around. A girl with dark hair and a ponytail said maybe it's just a cat burglar. It broke in and was looking for some jewelry. My mom doesn't wear jewelry, Glenda responds. But does she have any? The dark-haired girl said, placing one hand on her hip. Well, yes, but Whiskers is my friend and wouldn't do that. One of the boys is shocked and starts pointing behind Glenda. Every kid turns to look. Whiskers is on a fence walking on the top part with great balance. Glenda couldn't believe it. Tears started to leave her eyes. She dropped her backpack and ran to Whiskers. Whiskers ran to her. She knelt down and Whiskers leaped into her arms. The kids approached the two of them and started petting Whiskers. Whiskers meowed and looked at each of the kids. Glenda laughed and tried to hold back her tears. The redhead boy stood a few feet away. He was scared, thinking the cat would scratch him up like it did Brandon. Glenda kissed the top of Whiskers' head and snuggled her face into the cat's face. All her friends were very happy to see the cat from Glenda's stories. That's a good cat, one boy says as he pets Whiskers. The dark-haired girl cries a little bit, seeing how emotional Glenda is. She hugs Glenda and the cat and tells them how happy she is to witness this. Whiskers started showing up after school was out and walked Glenda home. Walking with Glenda and her trio of friends was always a good time. When they reached Glenda's house, Whiskers would run away. Glenda missed having Whiskers in her bedroom. She missed playing with the cat and sleeping together, hearing the purrs as Whiskers slept, feeling its warm fur. The smell it has was even worth it. One day after school, Glenda walked home with Whiskers, and Whiskers tagged along beside her as she walked and talked to her friends. When they got to her house, she gave Whiskers a pet and rubbed the cat's ears. Whiskers meowed friendly, then took off running down the street on the sidewalk. When Whiskers turned down the street, passing a long brown fence, a dark cover was swooped up over it. The cat was snatched up into a pillowcase, then tossed over the man's shoulder. Whiskers wrestled around and hissed and screamed inside the pillowcase. Brandon has done it. He captured Whiskers finally. He sneezed and coughed, walking the capture cat away from the area. The redhead boy. Billy saw it as he was about to enter his home. He decided to follow Brandon. Brandon walked into a field of tall grass away from the housing area. He headed to a wooded area. Billy kept a distance and kept following. Brandon used a black belt to tie on the upper part of the pillowcase and hung it in an old tree. The cat hissed and scrambled around in the pillowcase. Billy didn't notice that Brandon was also carrying a metal baseball bat the whole time. This painted a bad picture in Billy's head. No, he wouldn't, couldn't he? Billy questioned himself. As soon as Brandon backed away, he yelled out in anger, then lifted the bat and swung. Billy turned away, not wanting to see the beating. The sounds the cat made him sick to his stomach. He trembled, feeling so sorry for Whiskers, feeling sorry for Glenda. Billy started to cry. He peeked over, seeing a blood-soaked pillowcase hanging and Brandon breathing heavy and exhausted. That's fucked up, a voice says to the right of Billy. Billy looks over, seeing Pete, one of his friends, also a friend of Glenda. Pete stared wide-eyed and shocked. His mouth hung open. I followed you. I wanted to see why you were lurking around. Now I know, Pete says to Billy. They both can hear Brandon cussing and sneezing. He then started beating the pillowcase more. We need to tell Glenda, Pete says to Billy. Billy agreed. Then both boys took off running. It was getting late. The sun was setting when the boys approached Glenda's house. After knocking, Cheryl opened the door wearing an apron. She was cooking, and they can smell it. Shouldn't you boys be home? It is getting late, Cheryl says. We just need to tell Glenda something and we'll go, Billy says nervously. Cheryl gives the boys a look over, seeming to try to read their thoughts, trying to guess their attentions. You can speak to her here on the porch. After this, go home. It's getting late, Cheryl says, turning away, heading back into the house. She then calls Glenda to come downstairs to see her friends. Glenda rushed down and was glad to see them, but after stepping outside, she knew something was wrong. Pete couldn't help it. He started to cry. What is it? What's wrong? Glenda asked, starting to feel frightened. Billy stepped forward and let out a quivering breath, then spoke. That guy your mom is seeing, I saw him catch Whiskers in a pillowcase a few hours ago. He walked out of the neighborhood to the west side fields, towards the woods. Billy says, looking down, then back up at Glenda. I saw him tie the pillowcase to a tree, then he... Billy's words trembled as he tried to keep speaking. He killed Whiskers, Pete says, placing one hand on Billy's shoulder. He killed Whiskers with a metal baseball bat. That guy is nuts. Glenda stood silent, taking in the bad news. She looked at the two of them with disbelief. She for some reason felt like something was missing. Like when her father died, It was this connection she shared with Whiskers. It wasn't there anymore. It was this feeling that she couldn't explain, and it was gone. Just then Brandon showed up, looking dirty and like he came out of a jungle somewhere. He was all sweaty and tired looking. He held a baseball bat over his shoulder. He looked at the boys, then at Glenda. Glenda tried to pretend like everything was all right. She just stood there, quietly doing her best not to make eye contact with Brandon. She felt if she did, she would know. She would know the truth in his eyes. "Hey, Glenda. Hey, boys," Brandon says kindly. "Glenda, come inside. Your mother will have dinner ready soon." Brandon rubbed one hand across Glenda's head, caressing her hair gently. He then smirked and walked into the house, smelling his fingers. "Show me," Glenda shouted, crying out loud. "Show me where Whiskers is," Glenda demanded. The boys told her to follow them, and she did. When they got to the place, it was now darker out. The tree still held the bloody-filled pillowcase. Glenda fell to her knees and cried. "Why? Why would he do this?" Glenda cried. "Please show me. Please get it down," Glenda asked her friends. Pete, afraid of seeing what's in the pillowcase, tried to talk Glenda out of it, but she wouldn't have it. The more she cried, the more the boys felt bad. Billy had to climb up the tree a bit to untie the belt. The pillowcase fell, hitting the dirt and stone-covered ground. Pete looks at Glenda, then he opens the pillowcase. Billy looks inside, then rushes away puking on the ground. Pete walks away crying. Glenda walks over slowly, shivering and panting. Flashes of the cat came to her in her thoughts. Whiskers standing at her window, Whiskers slapping at her with its paws, Whiskers' funny cute cat sounds of happiness, Whiskers walking with her and her friends, Whiskers sleeping next to her in bed. Glenda looks down and the sight of Whiskers is obliterated, gruesome. It's so bad it burns the image deep into her mind. An eyeball hangs out from the eye socket of the cat with a horrid screaming expression left on its disfigured face. Glenda screamed, then fainted. The boys helped bury Whiskers and gave the cat a nice send-off with a couple of good words. Pete and Billy walked Glenda home. The boys ran away when they saw Glenda's mother standing outside looking worried. Glenda walked up the steps of her house crying. "It is late. Get inside so I can give you the belt. I have to teach you manners and responsibility." Cheryl yelled at Glenda. "Look at you. You're all dirty. What were you doing out there?" Cheryl says, grabbing her by her right arm and yanking her. "Mama, Brandon killed Whiskers. Brandon killed my cat," Glenda says, crying out loud. She wrestled away from her mother and ran upstairs. Cheryl stood in the doorway thinking to herself she just now realized something. Years ago, Glenda's father bought Glenda a kitten and planned to give it to her on her birthday. They kept the kitten at Cheryl's sister's house, but after Glenda's father passed away, Cheryl took the cat to an animal shelter. It was a shelter not in town. She didn't want to have anything to do with it. She was the one talking her husband out of owning one. She just didn't want a pet in the house. As she stood there staring out at the night sky, she realized the resemblance. That kitten back then had orange eyes and dark gray fur. It couldn't be, she thought. There is no way that's the same cat. She went to her daughter's bedroom and sat with her. Glenda thought her mom would spank her for being out past curfew, but she didn't. Instead, she asked her what happened. When Glenda saw her mother was willing to listen and didn't look angry, she opened up to her. After speaking to her mother, Glenda hugged her, Cheryl hugged her back, then started apologizing. Cheryl believed in her daughter. When Cheryl confronted Brandon, he lied to her and tried to get her on his side. It didn't work, and she broke off the relationship with him. At night sometimes Glenda would have nightmares of Whiskers. Whiskers returning to her all undead and disfigured, dragging one of its eyeballs as it walks to her meowing. When Whiskers got close to her, it would vanish. One day after school, Glenda walked with her friends. Lily, the dark-haired girl, was talking about a substitute teacher who farted in class today. Pete and this other kid, Paul, kept shoving one another playing around. Billy walked ahead, holding a stick he had found. He was swiping it at the air as he walked. The other girl Lily was talking to walked giggling at Lily's stories. An old tan Honda pulled up to the group, and they all saw that it is Brandon. Brandon got out of the car and walked over to Glenda. "Can we talk?" he asked her. Glenda said no, and kept walking. Pete and Billy gave him a mean look. Billy held the stick up as though he would use it on Brandon. Brandon proceeded after Glenda. "Hey, your mother told me to come get you. She wants to talk to the two of us. We can fix this. I love you. I love your mom. So get in my car so I can take you home." Pete runs over and kicks Brandon in the kneecap, followed after the kick. Billy swung the stick, breaking it across Brandon's forehead. Brandon fell on his bottom, and the group of kids all took off running. "That's what you get, cat killer," Billy shouts as he leads the group away. Brandon gets up and knocks off the grass on his pants. He then looks around seeing a few onlookers. He then gets in his car mad. He slams the door shut and speeds off. Brandon exits onto a highway. He speeds for a bit, then slows down as he begins to calm himself. He hates how things ended with him and Glenda's mom. He truly loved her, and he truly loved Glenda. Brandon steps on the gas jetting, past a few slow-driving cars, then turns back into a middle lane. He then starts to think of Glenda more and more. "Why did I have to kill that stupid cat?" Brandon says to himself. Brandon's eyes look up at his review mirror, then spots orange eyes of a cat in the back seat. Then he sees Whiskers staring right at him. Brandon jumps in his seat, darting his head back and forth, trying to watch the road and look down at the back seat. His car nearly rear-ended another vehicle. There is nothing in the back seat now. Brandon struggles to get his car balanced back after the fright. He looked at the review mirror again, and nothing was there. It started to rain, and Brandon was beginning to feel nervous. There were few cars driving fast still, but he began to slow down due to the rain. After 20 minutes on the road, Brandon began to feel his throat become irritated. He began to grunt and scratch at his throat. His eyes watered, and he sneezed. Brandon kept wiping his eyes because the tears wouldn't stop. "What the hell is wrong with me?" Brandon shouted. He kept sniffling and snorting with his nose. He cleared his throat, trying to get rid of the scratchy feeling. As he drove, he noticed something very strange. Every car that passed him has an orange-eyed cat staring at him from inside, some with different colors of fur than what Whiskers had. A large truck drove by, passing Brandon on the highway. The driver has the passenger window down. A white cat with orange eyes stared out the window at him. The cat hissed at him, showing its sharp teeth. Brandon hated it because it reminded him of Whiskers. Brandon changed lanes and tried to put his mind to other things, like getting to his new apartment, getting ready for a job interview, saving money, finding a new girlfriend. After a while, he let out a sigh of relief. Then there it was, a meow sound coming to him from the right ear. Brandon looks over, seeing Whiskers sitting in the passenger side seat, staring at him. The cat looked like it did before he murdered it. Whiskers knelt down as though it wanted to tell him something. A growling sound came from within the cat. Brandon, scared and shocked, stepped on his brakes. He was going 70 miles per hour, and the rainwater didn't help much. A voice rang into Brandon's thoughts in this moment. It spoke to him. "I can never die." With that, Whiskers jumped with its claws out and ripped apart Brandon's face. His hair shook fast as the cat laid into him with its attack. Brandon tried to keep control of the steering wheel and fight off the cat. The car swerved to the right, then to the left, then spun off the road, hitting a side exit ramp. The car flipped in the air. While it was airborne, inside the car, Whiskers was biting and clawing like crazy. Brandon was bleeding all over and hollering with open wounds in his face. The car slammed into the ground and slid to a stop. Brandon woke in a blur daze. All he could smell was gasoline and smoke. He can hear the rain outside falling. He then felt eyes on him. He sat upside down with his seatbelt still buckled. He could barely turn his head. Whiskers walked from the back to the front, then sat down facing him. The orange eyes stared at him as though they were trying to antagonize him. Whiskers shook its body, shaking off rainwater, then meowed a few times. Whiskers licked his right paw, then meowed, looking away, then back at Brandon. "Please, please, cat. I'm sorry. Please, don't hurt me. Please let me go." Brandon whimpered. Whiskers went to Brandon, then stopped in its tracks, noticing that other cars were beginning to stop nearby, probably noticing the accident and calling 911. The cat tilted its head to the side slightly, as though thinking of something sinister to do to Brandon. It looked right into Brandon's eyes. Brandon was still having an allergic reaction. From some parts of broken glass, Brandon could see his own reflection, and it was horrifying. Whiskers messed him up pretty bad. Whiskers placed one paw on Brandon's forehead. For a brief moment, Brandon could see from a few feet of where he had Whiskers tied in a pillowcase to a tree. He saw himself standing and swinging the bat at the pillowcase. Whiskers moves the paw from Brandon's forehead, and Brandon is horrified. He couldn't believe what the cat made him see. Whiskers' head tilted a little more to one side. The cat's eyes focused and unblinking, then in a quick move swiped at Brandon's neck. Brandon grabs hold as the blood spews out, covering his jaw and face. Whiskers kneels, watching for a moment, then stood up. The cat then darts out from the car, running out into the rain, just as the cat ran off. The lights of an 18-wheeler came in view. The horn was heard, but there was no stopping it. Brandon yelled as he held his neck. The truck crushed the whole front area of the car and jackknifed on the road. The next day, the crash was reported in the news. Cheryl was sitting in the kitchen when she heard what happened to Brandon. She felt so bad about how they left things. She thought if she had not broken up with him, he wouldn't have been on the highway that day heading to his new place. Glenda sat in the living room watching the news. When she saw Brandon's image pop up on screen, she felt justice. She felt relieved. The front doors met with scratching sounds. Cheryl stood up, trying to collect herself. "Did you hear that?" Cheryl asked Glenda. The scratching continued. Cheryl walked over to the front door, then she unlocked it, then opened it. Whiskers stood there wet from rainwater. Whiskers shook off the water, then walked into the house. The cat looked up at Cheryl, then spat out a small blue ring. The ring hit the floor and rocked until it stopped. Cheryl stood looking surprised and worried. She just watched as the cat walked over to Glenda. Glenda stood up from the couch and saw her friend. She couldn't believe it. "How?" Glenda says softly. "How are you alive? How are you here?" Glenda asked the cat. Whiskers went to her and rubbed its head on her leg. She bent down and picked up the cat. The cat has a sad look to it. "Is it really you, Whiskers?" Glenda asked with tears leaving her eyes. Whiskers responded with a weird yelp sound and purr. Cheryl picked up the blue ring, noticing some bloodstains on it. "This is Brandon's," she said under her breath. She then looked over at Whiskers. Glenda holds Whiskers, hugging the cat. She then walks to her bedroom feeling so happy. Whiskers stares at Cheryl peeking over Glenda's shoulder, the orange eyes staring right at her eyes. Cheryl then feels that something was truly wrong. Something about that cat didn't set right, and she knew there was nothing she could do about it.